That's your problem.
You assumed too much.
I assumed the normal amount of stuff that anyone would assume.
Do you guys think I have Do you guys think I have big ears?
No,
No.
Okay.
I have big ears. Look at my ears.
Actually,
I have big ears?
I don't have big ears. They just kind of like stick out a little bit.
I have
I
big
big
ears.
ears. Okay, you don't have big ears.
I'm thinking of getting my gauges put back in.
Then you would have bigger ears.
I had double zeros.
So, V, we now know what your, most commonly focused upon letter of the alphabet is. Letter of the alphabet. I said, we know your favorite letter of the alphabet. What's your least favorite letter of the alphabet?
Z.
Not you,
V.
Doc.
Oh.
I'm asking V.
V. No, I'm just kidding. The least favorite letter is probably Q.
What do you have against Q, babe?
What did you say?
I said, what do you have against the letter Q?
I don't use it often in words, so I don't like it.
Okay. That stands up as a variant. So is it that you don't use words that contain Q? Or do you think that there aren't enough words that contain Q?
Yeah, Audra, I don't want to use my brain right now. Can you not, please? Don't let me use my brain.
The fact is that I can't not. No.
I'm tired right now.
You can't not FE, right?
You're a great person, Audra. I'll tell you that. But my head's not working right now.
I can't not ask questions and try to.
Right now, the person who asks questions is me because my SI seeks data. But I'm not in the mood to ask questions right now.
I just seek discourse.
You just seek discourse. Why are you an SI user? Because I'm an ESFJ. And when I meet new people, I ask them a bunch of weird shit. I like data collection. It's a SI trait. That's how it was when V showed up. I started asking V a bunch of questions. No, I'm not an ENFJ. Susan, alongside several other professionals here, have determined that I was ESFJ and still have other tests. But I did have fluctuating results between ENFJ and ESFJ. You're not convinced? Oh, wow. You can question my type volume up. Not going to matter to me in the end. I could be ENFJ, I could be ESFJ. I could be fucking ENTPness. No, I'm just kidding. This fucking guy, he's laughing and shit. I just want to know, the distinction you possess. Well, I mean, because in my life, I'm really organized about my shit. I can't work in poorly organized areas. It's a bother. It's a problem.
That does sound like a bit of SI, whateverness.
That's a problem. It's disturbance of the peace for the general welfare of the people, including myself.
The idea of being constantly aware that things exist is fascinating to me.
Why are you asking me questions right now? I just told you I don't want to use my brain.
That wasn't a question. That was a statement.
No, Tay.
Oh.
Do I focus on the past? Girl, I got eyes in every corner, every direction.
I think we should let V ask questions. He's,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
What does V want to tell us?
What does V want to ask? I'd rather listen. V wants to listen to data.
What does V want to listen?
He wants to get to know us more.
I know, but we want to know V too.
V, it takes a little bit more time with V. He's introverted.
You don't say.
Don't engage
I
SI.
don't think that hypothesis is based on the so far data.
Don't engage SI. Well, SI is a shit that remembers everything you tell a person who is an SI and who has SI as one of their dominant lines. And they remember that because they remember every single bit the way you say it. And then they also enjoy the overall positive impacts of the collection of data. It's like we take it and then we organize that shit in our head.
Vocabulary is awesome. I agree.
Yeah. I don't use fancy rhetoric because I don't believe it's necessary.
Rhetoric or vocabulary? What are you saying?
Yeah, rhetoric or vocabulary.
Well, I don't use fancy vocabulary when I'm using rhetoric is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Good distinction, pointing that out. I kind of got confused there myself. I say a lot of weird shit sometimes. And you're back in my head.
I don't know. You do kind of use some interesting, some very specialized vocabulary, right?
No, I don't.
You do. The average person does not seem to. Most people I know do not use the term like problem admiration. I appreciate when you use, but yeah, it's not exactly common parlance.
Did you see that video that Susan posted?
Which one?
It's not easy being arch admin or something like that.
Yes, I did see that.
What do you think about it?
I think that Susan probably is not SE Polar. As far as the thing, I think that one type of person was reading particular sorts of intentions into another person that were probably, based on my observation of the situation, not the defining aspect if they are an aspect at all.
Holy shit, that was a gunshot. I just heard a gunshot in my neighborhood.
We're definitely, because of the technical situation in the room, it is reasonable to have less tolerance for non-engaging blankies when the room is filling up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because technically speaking, if they're not engaging and they're just listening, you're not removing the whatever it is they're after, because technically they could just watch the raw footage.
Mm-hmm.
And but I don't think Susie's kicking people out because when she fixes it, because she just is emotionally perturbed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Susie did it for that reason. But yeah, it was kind of a weird conversation, that whole video. But I also think that none of the proposed solutions were likely to be accurate or successful. It was, and also the person doing the using was doing a terrible job of allowing a response, and that was that was the worst thing. Is that
Oh, that makes me so angry.
it was like and students kept trying to respond, and the person kept talking over, and I
Oh, that makes me so fucking angry.
like that was.
That you have no idea how angry that makes me. That makes me so angry.
And then because I like both persons quite a bit, so it's like, well, it's weird what people get stuck in their craw and then become unreasonable about. And also, I think the person doing the accusing was for a person who's been in here as long as that person has. You'd think they would have a better idea of how to state their case to a couple of MTs.
That's very true.
The way they were going about it was not not how you're going to win the MTs over. Like it was almost doomed from the beginning, regardless of accuracy or which like is a whole other matter. But yeah, it was just like it was just kind of you're just like this was a waste of time. But the best thing is that the cosmic narrative, the cosmic whatever, the agent above all did beautifully arc the narrative with that little statement at the end when the person came in and went, "What's it, Lanky?" It was beautiful. That was.
I don't like it when people talk over each other. It's very frustrating.
Well, it's one thing to talk over someone for a second, like as you're completing a statement, but at a certain point, sometimes it's like, okay, it's a continuous and repeated refusal to allow response.
At that point, you just become a disrespectful bitch who's just coming in and presenting problem admiration.
Yeah.
No real.
I always feel really bad for people who can't like fight back against that. That seem to. Some people kind of take it, and some people can resolve that.
Friends, how to engage a conversation, how to spark a conversation between me and this INTP female. How to start it. Come on, NT friends, think. Use your heads. How to start it. She messaged me at 1:30, and she's like, why do transplant recipients prefer Republican hearts? Because they've never been used. And I put, ha ha ha, LMAO. And then I put, what keeps you up this late? But she hasn't seen it, so. It looks like she just got offline. I don't know.
I assume that's a rhetorical question because if she's an NTP, then I mean, the evidence suggests that existence, nature of self, went up late.
And that doesn't answer the question.
I don't know. Ask her if she likes Rick and Morty. I don't know.
It's not a bad idea.
I mean, that's just like
the only problem is I don't watch Rick and Morty.
thing. I don't know. I'm trying to think of actual INTPs I know in real life. The one person I know that I think is an INTP, and we had a rather odd way of kind of getting to know each other, so I don't know. It's like INTPs find me. I don't find INTPs. Whatever. So just come around and you're like, ah, there you are. Aha. But there's not enough. And mine moved across the country, so I'm actually in the market.
Yeah.
Released a temporary poster buy work. All I can find is INTJs. It's not the same. Like they're handy, but
Must one person's triumph be the humiliation of another?
not universally. Because that implies that all triumph is directly relational.
Oh, fuck.
You like that answer?
Yeah, I like it. Is taxation a form of ontological violence?
Or is it just kind of proper violence?
Takes money to run a country.
That doesn't answer the question.
I'm just saying it's a reality. Government has to be able to.
Taxation is a form of violence.
The government has to be able to generate revenue.
That's not generation of revenue. That's
Yeah.
acquisition.
You didn't answer the question, though.
And that's not the question we're asking. We're not asking should taxation. We're just asking what is it.
I think it's a form of righteous generosity.
Is it a form of violence? If not, why?
No, I don't think it is.
Why?
If you do not choose, if you do not wish to be generous or righteous, are you nonetheless forced to contribute?
Because
And therefore, is not the force
not
therefore violence?
capable of generating revenue, then it is not capable of providing services such as roads, such as bridges, such as highways.
Not the question we're asking. We're not talking about is taxation useful. We're not talking about does the government need money. We're discussing whether or not taxation is a form of violence.
Taking you a long time, man. Taxation is a form of violence.
I certainly
Fine,
agree.
you can call it a form of violence, but it's unnecessary violence.
Ooh.
It costs money to run a country.
It costs money to feed me. Is it okay to come force someone to give me their money?
Do we want potholes in all of our roads
can't
to
answer
destroy
a
our
question.
tires?
You can't
That's
answer
not-
a question with a question.
Do we want to fund FEMA to
No.
we have a fundamental disagreement then.
But that was not what we were discussing. We're not talking about whether or not the government should provide services. That's an entirely different discussion. We're not talking about whether or not the government should possible revenue sources. We're simply talking about taxation as a thing, as a strategy, a existing institution, whether or not it is a form of violence. And then we were discussing, and then because of your statement, we were moving into the realm of what is justified violence? What can justify violence? Because that was the question implied by your next statement.
Well, we can elect representatives who will legislate to take away this violence if we want to. Otherwise, we as a society do not consider it violence.
So the society's the social view, the social perception of it is what defines it as violence or not violence?
No, voting patterns do.
So violence is not an absolute? If next week the majority, the populace, the voting body decided that stabbing persons was not an act of violence, would it then become not an act of violence?
I think those are apples and oranges.
Explain.
Well, one has to do with one's personal body. One has to do with one's personal wealth.
They both have to do with one's personal possessions, personal property. And technically under the law, how is it that you can differentiate them?
Because one serves a purpose. One only serves to kill and to perpetuate violence.
One serves a purpose. So again,
So,
you're
are you prioritizing the outcomes versus the means to reach the outcomes?
Fine, I'll concede that it's violence against people, but it is needed. It is needed in our society, and it takes money to run a country. If we want a country that has falling bridges, falling dams, dirty water, filthy air,
So again, are you prioritizing the outcomes versus the means?
I just said that I conceded that it was violence.
That doesn't answer the question though.
You asked me if I considered it violence, and I just conceded that I did.
The second question is, do you prioritize the outcomes versus the means? Audra, can you clarify what I'm saying?
Yes, in some cases, no.
Is taxation one of those?
No.
But you said it was necessary. It was a necessary form of violence, right? Is that what you said?
I said it's a necessity to run a country.
And you said it was a form of violence. So you said it was a necessary form of violence, right?
Yes.
So
you're justifying the outcomes over the means.
In this case, yes.
I think that's what Abe was asking.
So, okay, fine. Okay, let's see.
But it's also 5:04 a.m. right here where I am. And my mind isn't working the way it should be.
If we prioritize the outcomes versus the means, do you not think that that's a dangerous approach to accomplishing the outcomes that you want to accomplish?
In some situations it's appropriate, in some situations it's not.
How do we understand which situations it's important in and which situations it's not important in?
I think taxation to run a country is a self-evident
Okay, but who decides that?
the legislators who are elected by the people who enacted the law.
Under what framework do these individuals use to say that this specific object
Look, if
should
we
be prioritized?
if we wanted to outlaw income tax, we could. We could vote in people.
You're missing the point, though. You're not answering my question. The question is, under what framework do we identify these specific requirements that are fulfilled through this necessary violence?
The promoting of the general welfare of the country.
What do we do? Well, if you're worried about the general welfare of the country, doesn't the turn occur in which you tax an individual forcefully?
Say that again?
Taxation is a form of violence, as you've conceded. My point is, if you're concerned about the general welfare of the people, don't you fail at the first step you are taking to accomplish that?
I'm talking about the facilitating of the running of a country. A country has to generate revenue.
Okay, but for what purposes?
To exist.
So you're prioritizing the existence of a state, of an institution, over the rights and existence of the individual citizens?
In this case, yes.
That's not an in this case. That's a pretty general statement.
Well, maybe it is, but it's 5:07 a.m. and I'm not prepared to have this argument. My mind is melting right now. But if the general public wants to eradicate taxation, we could vote in legislators who would get rid of the income tax. We've chosen not to do that. For what reason? Because the government needs money to run. That's where we're going to leave it because I have to go to sleep now. So I'm going to have to get up in like 4 hours.
Sounds like
Actually,
a good idea.
3 hours and 52 minutes.
Well, have a good sleep.
And it probably won't be, but I'll try. It was great talking to you guys tonight, by the way.
High five, Abe. I do believe it's the one that began the conversation. So we were having a discussion. He inserted himself. So.
She says, "Walking. What keeps you up this late? Watching breakout things."
Watching what?
Breakout Kings.
Oh,
What is that?
okay. I watched most of that show.
Oh, is that when people try and break out and stuff?
No, it was one of those like ensemble dramas. It was basically this Marshall, and they ended up and they got this like team of convicts to. They like let him out of prison temporarily, and then they help this U.S. Marshal hunt down other convicts. And so there's like a nerdy convict and a fighty convict and I don't know. There's like 4 of them or something. It's kind of a, soft anti-hero ensemble detective kind of show.
What does radical mean again? I forget.
Radical? Like technically does it mean, or like in slang and common parlance?
Like politically.
Politically, it means it typically implies a severe deviation from what is considered moderate or even reasonable. Some people I just make it sound like it means an unreasonable deviation. I would just say a severe deviation from a moderate position.
I see. Have you ever seen the show Leverage?
Yeah, that was a good show.
Is that on Netflix by any chance?
It was. I don't know if it is right now.
So, how is it that you can argue against? Okay, so let's say taxation is not a form, and then I'll argue this point of view. Taxation is not a form of violence because it is a sort of, it is a way, it is an integral part of the social contract. And then when we talk about the social contract, the question that comes in hand is if we're prioritizing that social contract over the rights of individuals. But said social contract specifically protects those individual rights. It's like I don't know. What do
you? Yeah, I mean, I'm actually sitting here trying to come up with ways to argue that taxation isn't violence, and I can't really find any because you can't You can say that it's at best, you might could come up with an argument that it's justified violence if you assume certain warrants of prioritization, right? You can't really.
I think it's more like like I remember reading something by Hobbes where he says something about chaos is the man's like state of being, the man's state of nature, and I think the best way to argue against this is like to prevent a man from like from to prevent men from warring against each other. Sorry, man from warring or humans from warring against each other. It's necessary for individuals to sacrifice a certain extent of their freedom in order to protect the rights that they have and their existence. It's not like a balance, but it's more like a payment.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, I do think that I don't really think that chaos is the natural state. I think that because it's not a stable state. Like even if you reset everything back to chaos, systems begin forming immediately, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, humans form communal systems, social constructs immediately, right? And some of them are more violent or whatever. I mean, but eventually, but I mean, they do. They start grouping up. They start forming communities. They start forming simple structures, organizational structures. I mean, even animals kind of do it. So, but that's not really the point.
Well, when I say like a payment, I mean like you kind of like, for example, you give up your right to kill people to live in a peaceful society, something like that. Not really, but your ability.
There's social currency and social exchange, right? You're exchanging one thing for another. But the idea is that you're voluntarily exchanging things. And then your choice would be in order to be part of the social construct, the civilization, for lack of a better term, right? You're presented with an option. You're like, I will trade this, this current. I will trade this for entrance or your protect these other things that you're offering me in return, right? Or I can leave. I can choose to opt out and refuse the protections or whatever. I think that's one of the things that, on a fundamental level, is a huge problem. Is that there's this idea of there's way too many protections and not enough choice in whether or not you want to trade for them or not, right? I mean, you'd almost think that you could come up with a system where it's like, all right, I don't want to pay these taxes, so I refuse, so you don't have to provide me these services, right? But the idea is, well, everybody absolutely needs these services, but the inability to opt out of the services and the thing is most people probably wouldn't, but I think that's an interesting contemplation. I haven't really thought of that possible solution before. That's an interesting idea. But that's always been fundamentally one of my problems is obligating other people. That's the problem with like bonds and things like that. I get in big fights over those when they come up. But I'm rambling.
I'm sorry, Audra. I'm talking to INTP chick and I'm getting like so.
It's okay. I was kind of rambling to myself and just my admiration. But I could come up with I had some thoughts I hadn't had before, which is good. Ash.
Hello. Mm, yeah, so about the RP or Dungeons and Dragons, the storytelling thing,
Hmm.
kind of confused about that because how do you play it? I've seen the tutorial, but it wasn't sufficient.
Are you talking about Storium or the D&D thing?
Storium.
So right now, the only thing you have to do is create a character if you want to play, or possibly play. And then what's going to happen is I'll write up an intro to a scene or to the story, right? And then more or less everybody can all the characters get to write passages, right, saying like what their character does and adding to the story. Like everybody just adds little excerpts to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'll be some things like I might throw in some cards to kind of guide the narrative. So like I might throw a challenge card that everybody can play strength and weaknesses on and kind of
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. How do you ensure that the
How do
story won't be a Suitsu story? Because you need strengths and weaknesses at the same time. So are you like somewhat handicapped and limited, or you just play strengths all the time, or does it work?
So think of it less as a limitation and more of just kind of guidance. It's not a definitive thing. Like it's all about being clever about how you're using your stuff. It's just a guiding thing, so that everybody's not just all off the wall all the time, right? And by having
Yeah,
both,
no, that is the thing. I am not sure how do you limit people from having a Suitsu story. A Suitsu story is where everybody's perfect, and how do you limit people from using strengths all the time? Is there like a limit or a
yeah,
bar for these?
you get like 3 of each to start with, and then if you use them all up, then it'll refresh them and you get a new set. But yeah, you only get 3 of each, so you can't play strengths all the time.
So using a weakness is saving up a strength.
Say that again.
Using a weakness is saving up a strength.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I mean, when I play Storium, a lot of times I just want something to go south because the thing is it's not a game with winners and losers, right? The point is to make the story. So if you're going along and you're like, hey, I think the story needs to take a downturn, and you're like, I think I want to make this happen, right? It's
Right.
you win. It's more about control than it is about outcome, and trying to that's the fun part is you get to kind of with the structure you can be like, no, I'm going to totally derail this whole setup, right? If you want to.
Right. So you're just making a story, and your character is not responsible. No, you are not responsible for your character's actions, sort of. So if he screws up, it's his choice.
Right.
Even though you're controlling him.
Right. You're in charge. I mean, more or less, what it is each person can narrate parts that aren't their character. You can create non-player characters. I mean, you can have extra characters and as you need. You can more or less insert anything into the story you want, as long as it doesn't really contradict stuff that's already happened or what other people are doing, right? And then like your character, like usually there's a slight. You end up most people won't overreach and like really like take over another person's dedicated character. So that's another reason they each have one. But what you end up with is you have very personalized characters, and you get a lot of different attitudes and things. It's just more fun when the one person's writing it.
The goal is to make an interesting story, rather.
Yeah, the point is to make an interesting story and to have fun inside the story.
All right.
Right. I mean, technically, you could like kill your own character and then you could create a new character, or whatever, or just stop playing, or you do whatever you want. I mean, characters aren't even safe. Like they could technically die.
Can a character appear in the middle of the story?
Yeah.
Player character?
Yeah. I can let characters in whenever I want.
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean there's very little you can't do. But the platform does work well for kind of.
Did you know that in San Francisco, low income is actually considered $100,000 a year?
That's interesting.
What? Jesus Christ.
Childcare costs $2,500.
Average salary.
So far, I've got me and Suze, maybe Elsie, Mark, and Anthony. So about got enough. I think I've got enough characters. I'll probably start the game sometime next week. I'm gonna play. And it'll probably last for, I don't know, months. It's not a real fast thing usually.
Jesus Christ. I mean, what you just said about the San Francisco salary doesn't sound right. But anyways, there's still a pretty high average age. I mean, when you're a software engineer in San Francisco, you get 100,000. The median salary is 100,000. $111,912 a year, which is like over 4 times what it is in Czech Republic. That is quite insane. And I mean, when 50 or 24,000 in Czech Republic is like a lot. So if you would, theoretically speaking, get hired by San Francisco as a software engineer for distance working, where as I am in Czech Republic, you'd be living like a king or some sort of thing. Jesus Christ. Do you know how much is allowed in Czech Republic? Like, a doctor which is one of the highest salaries, gets $50,000. Maybe even more because of the current inflation. About 40,000.
Yeah. Inflation out in San Francisco area is crazy. Because I was looking at trying to get a job out there. So it's like it's crazy. It's just like you'd be making on paper a whole lot of money, but you wouldn't be. And you'd have to more or less really live pretty austere to get good with it.
Yeah, a doctor, which is one of the highest paying salaries in Czech Republic, has $40,000 a year, right? And they're really needed, so they get a lot of money for Czech Republic. But if you look at less than 1 year of experience in San Francisco, you still get about a half more than a Czech doctor gets. The Czech doctor needs like to have a PhD experience, all of that stuff. And they're super rare within Czech Republic because nobody wants to be a doctor, so they have to work even more and they get like even more money, but it doesn't compensate for that much. I wonder how much you get, how much you get if you were to be a Starbucks employee at San Francisco. You'd still get like more money than a Czech doctor.
Maybe.
That'll be insane.
Probably. It's crazy.
I mean, preschool has more than Czech doctors. Jesus Christ.
Dude, how many blankies are in the room?
There's no blankies.
According to my thing, it says 11 people are in this room.
Oh, did you refresh it? It stays behind sometimes. Now does it say there's 4?
You know what? I think I'll go to San Francisco, become homeless. Work one of the easiest jobs there because I'll still get more than most Czech jobs, and then I'll
San Francisco has some beautiful ass weather.
now and I'll take like everything above $20,000 for my usage as a homeless guy. I'll get showers and stuff, you know, like in a fitness center, drive in a van and sleep there. I'll still be homeless. I'll be alright with that. And then I'll just invest the $20,000 I'll get a month or a year stocks. So zero annual addition 20,000 interest rate 10% and years to grow. How about results? About 20 results. About 40 results. I'd have to wait 20 years though. How about that's a pity. In that case, computer information systems manager, 10th percentile wage. That's a mistake. Yes,